Ghost in the Shell is a multimedia phenom of dense near-future sci-fi stuff. Machined in 1989 by Shiro Masamune, the series' designs, characters, stories, and ideas has coded inspiration into colossal chunks of the entertainment that we've enjoyed for decades. The 1995 animated film alone has been cited as muse to filmmakers like James Cameron and the Wachowskis. With a series this compelling, there's gotta be a great game just dripping from its shining, influential body, right? Well, part of the folks responsible for the PlayStation 1 cult classic Jumping Flash were tasked with the series' first home console outing. Could a video game do justice to the cornucopia of future tech and philosophy that made Shiro Masamune's work so fascinating? Well, today we're gonna find that out. Released in 1997 on the Sony PlayStation, this is Ghost in the Shell. Ghost in the Shell is a third-person shooter set in Shiro Masamune's fictional 21st century Japan. In it, you experience being part of the quintessential Ghost in the Shell team, Public Security Section 9. Led by the Cyborg series protagonist Major Motoko Kusanagi, Section 9 is a counter-cyber-terrorist organization. In the game, you play as the Rookie, the newest recruit to Section 9. The game's unfolding story acts as a kind of job efficiency proving ground for your character. It's up to Section 9 and you, the Rookie, to untangle the details of this new threat and find a way to stop these cyber aggressors. So how do you go about taking down cyber terrorists and their near endless mechanized armies? Well, with an adorable spider-like mech, that's how. This is a Fuchi Koma. It's a 6-limb mech that packs a good dollop of firepower, a bit of AI, and is insanely mobile. But more on that later. Ghost in the Shell's plot is basically delivered in two notable ways. Through mission intro sequences that emulate the digital map display from the Ghost in the Shell animated film, and through a bunch of awesome animated segments. The animated bits are fantastically well done. They're more akin to the visual style introduced in the original manga series, and are unlocked as you progress through the game's 12 levels and training sections. Interestingly, most of the English dub voice cast from the 1995 animated film returned to voice their characters in this game. So even though the game isn't technically supposed to be linked to the film, it still kind of feels like a side story piece, which is pretty cool. The story basically bookends each level, and its twists and admirable narrative depth juxtapose the real meat of the game in a great way, because when it comes down to gameplay, get this, Ghost in the Shell is a turn-off-your-brain, dash-and-shoot action game, and let me tell ya, it is freaking wonderful. Remember the Fuchi Koma, those adorable looking spider tanks with all that character? Well, you, the Rookie, control one. And no joke, this may be one of the greatest vehicles in a first-gen PlayStation game. I mean, this thing is an action game godsend. It spurts rapid-fire barrages of bullets, it locks onto enemies with heat-seeking rockets, it lobs grenades, and it glides. Oh man, it glides. Not only is the Fuchi Koma capable of strafing left and right, boosting forwards and backwards, but this amazing little Swiss Army arachnid has the ability to do all of this on walls and on ceilings. This kind of mobility was pretty impressive back in 1997, and it's implemented wonderfully because it still feels great decades later. Now, I want to elaborate on the controls just a little because I think it's important. Exact, the developer of Ghost in the Shell, took a creative approach to manipulating the Fuchi Koma's actions. You see, the game was created before the first PlayStation DualShock controllers were released. Why is that important? Well, that means the absence of analog control sticks to control your mech. The original PlayStation controller only had a D-pad, so the developers took a cool approach to the controls. The bumper buttons allow you to strafe right and left. Holding down a set of bumpers and pressing forward on the D-pad allows you to glide forward. The opposite on the D-pad allows you to glide backwards. By making use of your bumpers and D-pad, you get relatively smooth movement from your Fuchi Koma. It's kind of like having the flow of an analog stick while keeping the precision of a D-pad. It does take a bit of getting used to, but when it clicks, it feels incredibly intuitive to move around. As intricate as movement control can be, Exact took a more minimalistic approach to combat in the game, allowing your Fuchi Koma to lock on to nearby enemies when firing a standard attack. Holding down your standard attack allows you to lock onto enemies and build up a pile of Seeker missiles that are launched on release. All of this makes targeting enemies while flowing through levels simple and satisfying. Yes, the Fuchikoma is the perfect vehicle, pun intended, for an action game. And the developers knew this. Many of Ghost in the Shell's levels offer environments that are not only made with the Fuchikoma's multi-angled functionality in mind, but are made to be legitimately fun to whisk the little spider tank through. One moment, you're tip-tapping up and down skyscrapers in the big city. The next, you're skating through sewers or threading your way through streets in an awesome chase sequence. The levels in Ghost in the Shell offer an incredible amount of variety, not just in traversal possibilities, but in mission objectives as well. Yes, like I kind of alluded to earlier, this is a you see it, you shoot it kind of action game. But there are also timed missions for bomb disposal, a surfing mission where you skip along the water, strafe around enemies and obstacles, and even a catch me if you can sequence featuring thermoptic camouflage that plays homage to one of the greatest scenes in the original Ghost in the Shell animated film. Look, what I'm trying to say here is every level of Ghost in the Shell is a little different, and they're all genuinely fun. Accompanying this myriad of fast, fun, action-packed stages is just about the perfect undercoating of pulsating 90s techno. Ghost in the Shell's soundtrack consists of tracks from several different techno artists, and well, it's just about the best thing to be listening to while you swish around the world in an omni-traversal kill spider. So we got the gist of it. Ghost in the Shell does a good job of telling a decent story, it plays well, it offers the player a fair amount of variety, and the soundtrack sounds pretty great too. But is it really a game that deserves to be played today? Let's talk about that. Despite being prominently featured on the cover of official US PlayStation Magazine's inaugural issue, Ghost in the Shell didn't find much of an audience in North America. In fact, the title only sold around 60,000 copies here. Now, was it because the game wasn't directly connected to the animated feature film? Was it because Ghost in the Shell as a brand didn't pull in '97? Look, I'm not sure, but I know this. Ghost in the Shell is arcadey junk food with a shiny sci-fi action plot wrapper, and it just works. The game is a sweet glob of twitchy shooting entertainment. It refreshingly pulls away from much of the series' philosophical, political, and future tech heavy webbing, leaving a minute or two of short, well-executed exposition to glue together its levels. To put it simply, Ghost in the Shell puts an interesting all-terrain mech at your disposal. Says go, move, shoot, have fun, take a breather every now and then, have an hors d'oeuvre of well-executed story. Okay, done? Get right back into the action. And the game certainly doesn't overstay its welcome either. The main campaign clocks in at just a few hours, and you know what? That's all it needs to be. It's akin to your favorite action games from the 8 and 16-bit era in that it makes you come back to the game not because it's artificially padded, but because the game is really fun to play and to replay. Kind of like rewatching a really great popcorn flick. You start the journey and you just kind of lose yourself in it. It's the same here. Now, we all know that no game is without flaw, and yes, Ghost in the Shell isn't perfect. Yes, combat really does feel very good in this game, but most enemies can be taken down by circle strafe firing. This goes for several of the game's bosses as well, which makes things feel a bit on the easy side. And on the topic of bosses, there are a couple that are frustrating to take down, not because they're challenging per se, but because the game doesn't properly convey how to defeat them in your first encounter. Other than those little blemishes and maybe a minor gripe with a lack of checkpoints, there isn't too much else that I feel hampers what is otherwise an awesome experience here. Ghost in the Shell features amazing gameplay with its unique hex-limbed vehicle. Its levels are varied and exciting with a backdrop of awesome pumping techno that keeps you pushing through each enemy onslaught. The story beats are unobtrusive, keeping the general feel of the source material without a bunch of newcomer baggage. And the short animated sequences are beautiful, a complete joy to watch, and a wonderful unlockable treat for players. Like a wavy ride on a Fuchikoma, it travels in all the right places, locks onto its objective of having a good time without many mental gymnastics. Click. Mission accomplished. Ghost in the Shell is, in my opinion, one of the best action games ever released for the original Sony PlayStation, and it is without a doubt a member of the Game Club.